5-minute call. I call the Honourable David Cunliffe, and I'll give the member a ballot for.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in this chamber we have decorating the halls the emblems of battles in which New Zealanders have fought, and I'm looking opposite at one named Egypt, where 28 Māori Battalion served so gallantly and was in the front line of the breakout at El Alamein, which it was my privilege once to visit, and I'm calling it to mind because our late colleague Parakura Horomia was a dedicated attendee at their commemorations, and I've been very pleased to be at some, and I recall them because the principles for which they fought and too many died included the protection of the very freedoms which this bill now calls into question. And that is a matter of such seriousness, sir, that it behoves this House and every listener to contemplate very, very carefully the freedoms which could be compromised willingly or by omission through this bill. Mr. Speaker, this bill as it currently stands and based on the information that we currently have appears to be a sham in the shadow of a farce. The farce is obvious on our TV screens, the debacle of .com, the unanswered questions, sir, about Huawei, where our nearest allies, our Five Eyes partners, are unwilling to accept certain technology offerings which this government appears comfortable to do. And we have, perhaps most importantly, a significant issue of the GCSB cart before its own horse. We have the Kitteridge Review, which found 88 cases of illegal spying on New Zealand citizens or residents, Mr. Speaker, an extensive set of recommendations, and it is absolutely proper and important that the House considers the response to that review before it extends the powers of the agency, as is proposed in this bill, Mr. Speaker. And how does it extend them? Well, firstly, sir, to broaden the purposes for which the GCSB may act to include any economic well-being is to broaden it by, as they say, a country mile. Almost anything, sir, has a cost in financial terms and can be said to impact business. Now, it's not necessarily wrong, sir, to cover that, but we would want much more information about the extent and the process and the accountability around that, because it magnifies the scope of this agency. Our colleague opposite talked about technology change. A key change has been the development of the cloud. This bill gives the obligation to our telco providers to allow interception access into the cloud. You've seen the ads by one telco. We can't even say which government agencies use our services. This bill forces them to open up their clients' accounts to the scrutiny of those agencies, or so it seems. And what protections, I ask of the veterans of El Alamein, are given to New Zealand citizens? Will a judge's warrant be required for such intercepts? Will New Zealanders' cloud information be deemed to be within New Zealand's jurisdiction? Or will it be ultra vires because it's in the cloud and not tied to our domestic terrestrial communications? We look for the answer, Mr. Speaker. We have none. And what of the scrutiny, Mr. Speaker? Currently, the Intelligence and Security Committee, the oversight provided by Parliament, is in name only. It generally gets information after it's released to the public, Mr. Speaker, and it's headed up by John Brainfade Key, a man who has the courage to pick up the phone and ring a schoolmate and ask him to be the head of our spy agency, but does not have the courage to pick up the phone and talk to Aaron Gilmore about his antics, and can't remember where he was last week or last month or last year or who he spoke to or why. And, Mr. Speaker, are we prepared to accept that man's assurance that all of the activities of the agency that are being broadened by this bill are subject to New Zealand law when the review has not yet been enacted? I think not. Mr. Speaker, our GCSB has a valid and important role to play in protecting our national interests. It must have the highest trust of this House and the New Zealand people. And this legislation needs a lot more clarity and a lot more information before the Labour opposition can support it.
I call the honourable member Gareth Hughes. Tēnā koe, Mr. Hughes.
Kia ora, Mr. Speaker. Ngā mihi nui kia koutou kia ora. I rise to speak and